Now, there is only one single force in the universe. Only one. And it doesn't matter what you call it, but I'm going to call this one single force gravity. I'm defining it for you. I'm starting again. Doesn't matter what you call it. And I'm saying there is only one force, and it is gravity, and everything that goes on in the universe is a manifestation of that one force. Now clearly there's different forces. Yes, okay, the next one might be magnetism. That's another force. But I'm saying magnetism is just another manifestation of gravity. It all boils down to the same single force. And I could put it like this. I can say that magnetism is amplified gravity. So it's the same force, but a different manifestation of it. Now, if you say there's a force, a field, you can say it's a field, there's a gravitational field. I would also say that is the ether. A field, what is a field? A field is a sphere of influence. That still means a force. But a field means potential energy, not energy. You see, before there is any energy at all, there is potential energy. In terms of gravity, if I lift up this object and hold it here, it now has gravitational potential. I'm holding it within a gravitational field. If I let go, it falls down. Now we have energy, now we have gravity. So if I'm holding it here, there's no gravity. It's only potential energy. Same in a battery. If I have a battery, I have an anode and a cathode. Now we call it electrostatic potential, but it's still just potential energy, not energy. Only when I put a wire across, then I have electricity, and that is the release of that potential. But electricity looks like something different to gravity. I'm saying no, it's the same thing. Because gravity is the release in space. It's very soft. Electricity is the release in space, but a different density of that space. It's more powerful. It's amplified space. Electricity is the release of space, gravity, in a more amplified fashion. It's more condensed, more powerful. So gravity, in terms of a physical object, is very soft, because it's just going through space. The very diffuse, the fundamental field, gravity. Now, interestingly, okay, there is an interaction. There is still an interaction between this object and the space around it. Okay, people don't know this, but it's been proven. What I mean is, if I were to throw this object in space, in the vacuum, people think, okay, there's no friction, it'll go on and on forever. But actually, no. Even in space, if you throw an object, it goes for a long, long time, but eventually it slows down and stops. And they don't know why. But that is proof of the ether. It is proof that this object is interacting with just space. It's actually creating a turbulence in space. And the turbulence in space means it is reducing in its gravitational potential. But its gravitational potential of what? Of the object and space itself. That is proof, that is physical proof that gravity is to do with space, not so much to do with objects. It's the release of a potential in the ether, gravity. And everything is that. See, in space is the most diffuse ether. But imagine you build up a more intense potential. So an electrostatic potential is more intense gravity. Again, it's going to take me a while to explain why that is so. But what is happening at the release of that potential is we have electricity, an electric current. That is a release of a more intense gravitational potential. But that builds up and goes. You see, for example, in a battery, the anode and the cathode are physical objects. They themselves have got a gravitational force pulling them, but it's so slight, makes no difference. Inside the gravitational potential, on top of it, there is a more intense energy building up, electrostatic potential. The electrostatic potential is more fluid. That can release, that is space itself releasing. You see, when you realize an object in space is affecting space, it means space and space is also affecting itself. There is just movements in space. What is that? Space is not physical. I've talked about it before. Space is consciousness. It is spiritual energy. There is a movement and an interaction of just spirit, space itself. But that can condense and become more powerful. As it condenses, you have a different effect in space. Electricity is a different effect in space, more condensed. And the movement of electricity also creates a turbulence. It's creating an effect in space around it. But it's so intense it creates magnetism. Magnetism is simply amplified gravity. Because it's still, an electrostatic potential is still a gravitational potential, but far more intensified. Therefore, when it releases, it's going to have a gravitational turbulence. That's magnetism. Magnetism is another force that seems to act upon mass. Gravity is a force that acts upon mass. But really, as I said, it's space. But magnetism is interesting because it's got both attraction and repulsion. It works both ways. Gravity is only attraction. Magnetism is a turbulence because it's a more intense turbulence because it's a release of a greater, a higher potential. It's more energy. It's greater energy. It's a more powerful force, or rather a more powerful manifestation of the same force. And we have attraction and repulsion because we have a particular direction of movement. Okay, step back a bit. Pure magnetism. Pure magnetism will affect all matter. And even modern science will say that. Yes, everything is magnetic. If you could generate a powerful enough magnetic field, it will affect everything. Non-magnetic atoms would still be affected. In other words, a more powerful magnetic field is still going to act like gravity. It will affect everything. So that in itself is interesting. But we also have attraction and repulsion. We have both. Attraction and repulsion is an effect of atoms. This is difficult. You see, electricity is still pure fluid. That is a release of space, very intensified, condensed space, releasing in space, but it's still pure fluid. However, it releases through a conductor atoms. Atoms are needed. But not really. A powerful enough electrostatic potential would still release in a vacuum. I'm talking about, cosmic phenomena, like a supernova, like a black hole, in a vacuum, nothing there, but the potential is so powerful, it will still create a plasma. It will still create a discharge. So that's pure fluid. But on the levels we see, it requires atoms. So an atom is in itself, an atom is the creation of a north and a south pole. The atom is a creation of a positive and a negative charge. And really they're the same sort of thing. Not quite the same, I'll come to it. So the fact that there is attraction and repulsion only occurs because there are atoms, different types of atoms. Otherwise, there's only gravity. See, gravity is the underlying force. It affects everything. Gravity will affect pure spirit. Gravity affects your soul. Why do you think your soul is pulled to this earth, pulled to this body? The soul is pulled by gravity into the body. It's the same force. That's the underlying force, the ether. But electricity is a more intense version, and electricity really builds up because there are different types of atoms. There has to be a condensation of the ether, and there has to be these little bubbles of ether. An atom, here's the thing, an atom is the pure fluid trapped in a little bubble. Now there's a movement of fluid in a circle, in a sphere, a spherical movement, a harmonic, a dynamic, but it's trapped in a bubble. Now what you've got is a movement of electricity. See, this bubble is created by a potential. See, imagine this. You have a very powerful potential energy, lightning in the clouds. Lightning builds up, and then there's a release of lightning. That's a powerful release of electricity, and it's so powerful it actually is plasma. You can think of it as electricity passing through the air creates a plasma. It's like it's melting the atoms. It's releasing through the atoms. And if you had a very powerful plasma, it will melt the atoms, and then as it cools, it will create new atoms, little bubbles in the plasma. And the plasma was created by this potential energy, and inside the atoms, what's happened is that potential energy was trying to release. And in the process of trying to release, it got captured. So an atom is a little bubble, a little moment of this potential energy trying to release. And now it's got stuck. It cannot release. It's going round and around in a circle, trying to disappear, but it cannot disappear. So an atom is trapped potential energy. And we all know that. Atoms are potential energy. If you burst an atom, energy comes out. But it's not easy to burst an atom. Very powerful potential energy trapped. And because it's spinning around and around, that is electricity spinning in a circle. Now remember, electricity creates turbulence in the ether. So spinning electricity creates magnetism, turbulence, but because the electricity is going in a circle, the turbulence creates a movement perpendicular. It creates this donut, torus shape. Now you have a magnetic field, a north and a south pole, because of the movement of electricity in a circle. And it depends on the direction. Which direction the electricity is spinning creates the north and the south pole of the magnet. Now you have a magnetic atom. Now you have this. You have now attraction and repulsion. Otherwise, it's just attraction. I hope this made sense. I'm going to keep trying. And get this explanation better and better. But ultimately, it's a simple idea I'm trying to say. One and only one force. You could call it gravity, call it the ether, call it space, call it consciousness. But movement in that space creates energy. But first there is a potential, then there's the release of that potential. So please do leave me any questions or comments. Please do check out my channel. And I do also have a book now called Pure Fluid, Ether and the Shamanic Universe. Book 1 is going to be a series. I'll leave the details of the book in the description. So thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you in any of these other videos here.